Hey everybody, what is going on? So in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the next section, and that is setting the agenda. Now, to start things off, I got a little story for you. And before, back in the day, when I used to go to the dentist for a routine cleaning, the dentist I had at the time literally just didn't say anything as they were operating on my teeth. So I'm sitting on the chair and the lights in my eyes, and they say open my mouth, and they're just like doing something in my teeth, right? And mind you, this is a regular routine cleaning. But because the dentist wasn't speaking to me or wasn't saying anything and wasn't really making it clear what they were doing, the entire time I was thinking in my head, is this gonna hurt? Is my mouth supposed to feel like this? Wait, is that a drill? Like, I thought it was a checkup, not like I'm not trying to get any cavities removed. So I'm in panic mode, right? And this created a lot of stress that really was just unnecessary. Now, here's the thing when it comes to fear. Fear stems from the unknown, and when it comes to buying and selling, for a buyer, they do experience a lot of fear. And that fear actually comes from whether or not they feel they're going to get value from whatever they purchase. And if they are not sure, they're not going to buy. So whenever you clear up the unknowns ahead of time, people have nothing to be afraid of, and they're going to feel like they can trust you more. Going back to the dentist example, when I switched over to another dentist, this dentist was a lot more professional in that they asked me and they were walking me through everything that was going on as they were operating on my teeth. So the dentist would say, hey, this is going to hurt for a second. Don't worry. It's going to feel like a little slimy on your gums, but that's normal. She'll last 30 seconds. Don't worry. I'm not going to drill your teeth. We're just going to do a deep cleaning on your teeth. It shouldn't hurt, but if it does, let me know, right? So by a dentist telling me all these things, I feel a lot more comfortable with my situation versus someone that doesn't say anything at all. And this is because when you're setting the expectations for another person, you're not only making the other person's fear go away, you're also taking control of the conversation while making the other person feel like they are in control. And that is called perceived control. And this is what you want to master when it comes to being successful in sales. So in every sales meeting, there is always an opportunity to set an agenda at the beginning of the conversation. So when you meet somebody, you shake their hand, say, hey, how's it going? They say it's going great. And then from there, you're going to transition into the actual business meeting. And this is the opportunity you have to set that agenda. And so let's break down, what do I mean exactly when I say setting the agenda? Well, the purpose of a sales meeting really is to see if it makes sense to work together or not. If there is a fit, great, you move on forward with the deal. And if you find that there is not a fit, then it's okay. Then you say, okay, it's not a fit for either of us. Let's go ahead and move on with our lives. And that's it, right? In a sales meeting, you're not selling. You're just seeing if it makes sense for the person to buy whatever it is that you have. And if it doesn't make sense, you got to let them know and move on. But if it does make sense, move on to the next step. Now, the magic here is that when you are setting the agenda, meaning the expectation somebody has for that meeting, well, you either want to get a yes or you want to get a no, but you never want a maybe, right? Yes, they're going to buy. No, they're not interested. That's totally fine. But you never want a maybe, because maybe it's just a waste of time. Then you got to follow up with them and do all these things that they may never close. So remember, set the agenda. You want a yes, you know, but never a maybe. Now, here is how you are going to set the agenda. Basically, you just want to follow these 5 steps in this order, and it's pretty much going to work in any type of sell. So the first thing you want to do when you set the agenda is you want to talk about the time and purpose of the sales meeting. Why exactly you're there, how long it's going to take. Then you want to say what the other person's expectations and agenda are. So what should the other person expect to get out of this meeting? What value do they have to gain from spending time with you? From there, you want to talk about your expectations and your agenda, because that's important, because your time is valuable as well. So you talk about that, and then later, after that, you're going to talk about the outcome of the conversation. So what exactly you want to happen. And this is typically where you want to say either it's a fit or if it's not a fit, and we're never going to get a maybe, right? And don't worry, we'll get into that section more deeply. And the last part is going to be challenges. So and this part is a little more optional, where if you run into any type of challenges that are consistent in all your sales, you want to just bring up all those challenges right there and squash them. So don't worry, we'll get into all of these, but just know that this is pretty much the format that you're going to use. Now, the first step, like I was saying, is your time and purpose. So you want to make it clear how long the conversation is going to take, explain the purpose of the conversation. And an example of that is, John, I want to take 20 minutes to see if it would make sense to work together, right? So that's the time and purpose of why the meeting is even happening. And then from there, you want to set the other person's expectations and their agenda. So you want to make it clear. You empathize with the other person's situation, and you want to address any of their main critical points of interest. So an example of that would be, of course, you're going to have some questions for me and how our services might be able to help grow your business. I'll do my best to answer any questions you may have, right? That's pretty much their agenda. Their value here is that they want to learn about your business. They're going to ask you some questions and you're going to answer those questions. Then you want to set your expectations and you're explaining what you want out of the conversation. So that's saying, and naturally, I'll have some questions for you so I can get a better understanding of how I can best help you. So your value is actually helping them, which makes them feel really nice. And then the outcome of the conversation is what you want to happen at the end of the conversation. And again, yes and no is okay, right? If someone says they're not interested, that's fine, but you got to figure it out. So an example of that is at the end of the call, either one of two things will happen. If we find it doesn't make sense to work together, that's totally fine. But if there is a fit, we can work out what the next steps will be towards the end of the call. Does that sound good to you? And they're going to say, sure, that sounds totally logical to me. And that is pretty much how the outcome of the conversation is going to go. And the challenges and obstacles is optional, right? Meaning if you have something that keeps coming up in every single sales meeting and it's like this objection or this reason for why people aren't moving on to the next step, you can bring it up right here and you could say, now, before we even get started, a lot of people tell me they're interested, but after the first meeting, they stop responding and completely disappear, right? So if you're not interested in my services, I just want you to let you know that you can tell me no at any time. Does that sound fair? And this makes it so that people aren't in that maybe area and you're just saying like, hey, if you're not interested, just tell me, right? So you don't always have to say this, but if you find that people are always flaky, you can kind of put it right here. So let's go ahead and put this all together and give you the full example of how you would set the agenda when you're in a sales meeting. Time and purpose. So I'm gonna just go straight through so you can see the natural flow of it. I wanted to take 20 minutes to see if it would make sense to work together. And of course, you're going to have some questions for me and how our services might be able to help grow your business. And I'll do my best to answer any questions you may have. Now, naturally, I'm going to have some questions for you so I can get a better understanding of how I can help best you. And that's what I really want. And I want to bring you value. At the end of the call, either one or two things will happen. If we find it doesn't make sense to work together, that's totally fine. But if there is a fit, we can work out what the next steps will be towards the end of the call. Does that sound good to you? They're going to say, yeah, sounds fine. And okay, well, the last thing I want to say is now a lot of people tell me they're interested, right? Which is great. But after the first meeting, they completely stop responding and completely disappear. So if you're not interested in any of my services, I want you to know that you can tell me no at any time. Does that sound fair to you? And they're going to say, okay, yeah, that sounds fair. And you're making them feel comfortable, right? And so pretty much in the beginning of every meeting, you want to set the agenda. Time, purpose, their agenda, your agenda, conclusion of the conversation, and any obstacles that you want to talk about. You're basically taking control of the entire situation. However, because you're asking these keywords like, does that sound good to you? Does that sound fair? People naturally feel like they're in control because they're saying yes. However, whoever sets the agenda is in control of the conversation. And again, the person who sets the expectation is in control. But the prospect, whoever you're talking to, will feel like they're in control because everything you're saying is making sense in their head and they're agreeing to everything that you're saying. So that's pretty much how you're going to set the agenda for every meeting. And know that you're always setting the agenda in every single meeting, no matter where you are in the sales cycle. Whether it's the first call or you're 3 months in, you're always going to set the agenda because you want to make it crystal clear what your intentions are and what the other person's intentions are and what they expect out of the meeting. So with that said, that's everything we have to cover when it comes to setting the agenda, and I'm going to see you in the next lesson.